Hello and welcome back to the channel, and we rejoin our classic traveller solo role-playing experience. We had spent several sessions in the enjoyable task of developing, fleshing out, and generally exploring the new world of tarot, our starting world. And it really was, I really quite enjoyed that process, moving from basically the bare stats of the planet to something that was quite interesting. And basically the next steps that I want to do are to, I think I'd mentioned in the last episode that I wanted to just complete the dimensions, extrapolate some adventure points, flesh out the NPCs that we generated. Remember these three characters: our shopkeeper, our scout administrator, and our technician. And then try to, if we did have time, commence our design of the tarot spaceport, our starport type C, and get our characters teed up and ready to enter the Dragon Hotel on Tarot, or in the spaceport. So agenda one item was the recap on the dimensions, and I said that we'd gone through the checklist quite extensively, and we covered all these different aspects: the economy, the society, the culture, the physical environment, and the ecosystem. So what I've done is I've done a high-level summarization of what I thought the pertinent points were. So under economy, I've got things like the exports, with a reliance on the unique crystals and polymers. So you'll recall that the crystals was a big feature, probably our main export, and polymers in a secondary capacity. There was an import dependency on finished goods, which resulted in an unfavorable balance of trade. And also there was the hidden tech, this clandestine advanced technology sector that was beavering away somewhere on the planet, doing all sorts of high-tech wizardry, which the government, if they found out about it, they would not be happy at all, because they have a very anti-tech ethos. And then moving on to our society, we had a conservative rule by the majority, who were the dominant group in the society. They had very much an anti-tech viewpoint. There's a lot of factionalism going on, and dissension. However, they were all from pretty minor groups in the effectively the social food chain. And if you're a betting man, you'd probably say the ruling government had a very good chance of just dismissing the opposition and basically ignoring it. The occupants of this planet are tolerant but cautious of outfielders. Nothing special, but at least they're not going to, as I said, throw rocks at you in the street or call you names. They're going to be reasonably welcoming. They're certainly going to be polite and civil, which is probably a good thing, and probably mind their own business, just get on with their lives. And on the culture, there was an anti-tech ethos and a strong resistance to any advanced technology, and that permeated right through their society, and there was quite a lot of philosophical basis to that belief. They were a strong believer in individual rights, personal privacy, and freedoms. They also had developed this thing called the pragmatic compromise, which reconciled the contradiction of projecting technology in a hostile environment. So there's an acceptance of technology for necessity. Okay, on the physical environment, it's a low gravity planet. There's thin atmosphere. And we'd reckon that there was quite a kind of dreamlike quality to this planet. It felt quite mysterious and almost, I think I said it was a kind of fantasy kind of vibe being given off. It had some severe storms, and basically it's a cool world. It's quite cold. We have unique geology. There's purple rocks and quite irregular terrain, which makes it quite a striking landscape. The ecosystem, we have a variety of adapted life forms, flora and fauna, specifically adapted to low gravity and a thin atmosphere. We had this horrible thing, the spectre threat, which was a dangerous non-native predator. If you cast your mind back, it was to do with the original colonists had brought with them uplifted, I think they're kind of like bat-like creatures, so they're a bit like small pterodactyls, and they, for some, I don't know what the reason was, they uplifted them. Maybe they were going to use them as servants or something, who knows. And some of them escaped, and they went out into the wild, and they were very adaptable, and they turned into these predators that go around, flying around at night, doing horrible things. So they're quite scary. And then we have the marine resources, whales and fish species. So that's us. It took a while to go through all that, but that was a worthwhile exercise, I think. And by the end of it, I think we had a very three-dimensional view of what the planet was all about. We knew kind of like what it ticked, how it ticked, what the culture was like, what the colonists were like. If you could, probably put this into an AI program and say, what would this look like, and it would come up with a picture, and quite a reasonably faithful recreation of what you described. Okay, so that's I think that's that step done. I just completed a few of the other bits up here. There's some notes. The fact that Taro is not a poor world, it's middling wealth, and the crystal polymer exports are quite lucrative. And I think I got rid of the poor classification. We don't have a travel zone classification. And I think that was about it on the top area. Now, the adventure points, I had quite a bit of fun having a think of all the different adventure points that I could draw out, and I thought I'm probably only going to get 2 or 3, but actually I've got quite a list of adventure points. So I was quite surprised, and the way that I'll use these adventure points is that I'll draw them into the mechanism I've got for seeding things that are going to happen in the campaign. But the beauty of this is that I've got it tailored to the way I want it to, based on the environment. So instead of just having completely random things that come up and then I've got to shoehorn it in, I can use maybe some of these with the other random things, and I've got a nice blend. Yeah, a nice blend of potential adventures and hooks, which are kind of, as I say, one of the things I wanted to do was trying to have a setting on my own terms as well, and I like to be in a wee bit in control of the direction and have the influences, but still have a bit of surprise in it. And I wanted to put my own stamp of what I viewed as my science fiction ideals were. So I think I'm getting the best of all worlds. I'm getting the random, and I'm getting kind of like what I'm quite happy with the way that Taro's turned out. It's got a lot of the stamps of what I'd be interested in a science fiction adventure straight off the bat. So looking at these adventure points in a little bit more detail, I've got them into like well, I've got three major categories, and then I have little subcategories of some of the sub threads I pulled out. The first one is probably to do with like political intrigue and factional conflict, and that's quite a broad thing. We did develop quite quite a comprehensive view of what the political structure was like, and the factions that were existing on the planet, and how they were being shaped by historical and environmental factors. And there's a lot of there was a lot going on. It was quite busy in terms of cultural interaction, political interaction, social. Yeah, there was, as I say, it was quite busy from that point of view. So it's quite a rich and fertile place to kind of harvest any points. So I thought maybe the first one was to go into detail about the captive government struggle and revolt, and that's all these free colonists that came 200 years ago, and whether they have a kind of legitimate claim to have a bit of a kind of chip on the shoulder about these new colonists, and the new colonists that I suppose they do kind of lord it over these people, and they think they're a bit superior, and I suppose the captives think, we were here first, and we were getting like pushed to the sideline. So it's whether you might be drawn in to aid this group, you'll be a sympathetic party in their efforts to regain any political influence. So the characters could get involved in that. There could be something like uncovering evidence of corruption or possible wrongdoing by this ruling conservative majority. There might be involvement in maybe some alliances with the other minority factions, the feudal technocrats and the Taro Corporation. There might be some shenanigans going on there. There's even something like public awareness campaigns going on to maybe challenge this. It's like a conservative narrative that's happening all over the planet, and whether this group can almost like organize itself and mobilize itself politically. You don't get the feeling that they're going to be like a revolutionary Marxist cell. It can be quite ruthless and organized. These are kind of like basically just pleasure-loving, almost like super hippie types that you wouldn't think they'd be organized. We would call it we call it a piss up in a brewery in the UK. But you got the feeling that would be the case for these ones. And then maybe I suppose the ultimate sanction for this group would be to engage in some sort of covert operation to disrupt the government's plans. But we might have a bit of a laugh with this group, and just sort of whether you take them seriously or not. But I suppose that they're running around with weapons and things, and they do have these robots, and they might have done something to their robots to and obviously they've had some form of scientific capacity in the past because they've done this uplifting. So who knows what they've got hidden away behind their retro furniture with all the stereo systems hidden away. And they might have other gadgets and things. Not saying weapons of mass destruction, but they might have something pretty nasty hidden away. And maybe keep our eye on them. So they might players. Our player characters, they might be hired or engaged to maybe, I don't know, protect one of the leaders or maybe smuggle some information. And maybe there's a sabotage of one of the conservatives' activities or projects. So that's quite extensive. So there could be a lot going on with them. And then I've called this. You remember we talked about the Taro Corporation, and the fact that they had a clandestine division that was dealing with cybernetics and vaxxers. I've christened them the Python division because I thought that sounded quite sinister. So there is the Python division activities and any potential corporate espionage. And, one of the things in Traveller is, they love the corporate espionage. That's a big thing. The mega corporations, the evil imperial mega corporations that are just out for their profit motive. And they're very ruthless. Nothing's really much different in my campaign. I do like the corporation idea. I love the company idea that was in Alien, with that very ruthless corporate view that they don't care about anything about just the bottom line. Human beings are completely expendable. They're just capital to be used up. So that still carries on into my universe. So there might be a view to investigate these clandestine activities of this Tarot Corporation, and specifically the secret Python division, and just what's going on here, and see why is it developing this advanced and basically forbidden technology. So that could, I suppose, you could involve infiltrating, their research facilities. That would be interesting. Maybe stealing or acquiring some of their technology that they're doing, and either using it as leverage, or maybe for a rival faction, or maybe even an outside buyer that might be interested. And then exposing the Python division's activities to either to the public or to the imperial authorities. Who's to say? Maybe the Imperium is involved in this, and they know all about it, because I did say that there was a backing of the Imperium on the Tarot. But who's to say that the Imperium aren't like a sleeping partner in the Tarot Corporation? And the Tarot board have decided, we'll just keep this off the radar for our Imperium sleeping partner, and we'll just carry on ourselves and just do it ourselves. So it might be news to the Imperium too. And then maybe there is a conspiracy with some powerful figures in the Imperium that know about this. So that's another dimension to think about. And then something I thought was quite a shocking revelation to myself, and I just thought, oh, that sounds awful. And this would be the I call the Spectre development, and that involves this horrible thought that the Python division have managed to capture some Spectres, and they are using them in their xeno weapon development of life forms, and they've basically got this little unit called the biohazard unit, and they are doing the ultimate horrible thing that you do with xenomorphs or anything that's horrible on a planet, and they're turning them into making adaptations for any kind of black operations and military purposes. So that's everyone. That's probably the worst thing that they could be doing, and that's all. It's all come from all this stuff that we've generated. All these fantastic science fiction tropes that we can pile on into this. So let's stuff it in there. So the bottom line is that if the player characters in our party, they could be hired as corporate spies, investigators, I suppose troubleshooters. Anybody that just gets involved in the corporate world. So that's a good opportunity, and venture point. On the imperial influence, I would say that I'm really talking about. I did allude to these crystals and the fact that a small percentage of the crystals could be used as a component in jump drives in the warp core. And I thought, well, don't everybody go, wow, that's an amazing resource. There can't be anybody else doing it. This place would be the center of the universe. It's almost like Spice on Dune and that sort of thing. It's not quite in that league. What tarot does is it's got access to these crystals. They're not of a fantastic quality, and also it's not like it does exist on other planets, and there are other planets that are massive producers of this. So tarot's got a kind of niche thing with these. So it's not like it's going to be like the center of the universe type thing, and it's a very rare thing. However, that being said, it is a very valuable resource, and obviously having a kind of thing comparable to a dilithium crystal makes this quite a strategic planet. So the Imperium's interest could, in this jump drive crystal, as a component, it could lead to increased intervention in the planet's affairs. So that could drive it. So we might have some scenarios where we have to negotiate with Imperium officials, and this could all revolve around just the trade deals that we've got, the autonomy that tarot has, just whether the Imperium is interested in exerting greater control over the planet's resources and government, and if there's any potential clash. And I suppose that's a bit more on a kind of geopolitical level, and I think that would probably be something further down the line as the characters progress through, and maybe some of the NPCs that we've been trying to generate. Maybe they would have, at that kind of level, they get involved. So I thought that would be good. The players in this sort of thing, involved as on the diplomatic side and negotiators. So that's at this high level. And then on the ground, there might even be like a resistance fighter thing if the Imperium are heavy-handed, and the local populace want to fight back. But I suppose I'm not really talking about maybe going into like a full-blown annexation by the Imperium, but there might be a use of force at some stage. I'm not. The Imperium in my universe, just like the Traveller one, it's not here to make your life any better. It's there to make the Imperium's life better. And if you are just collateral, you'll just be brushed out of the way. So if it's all fair and dandy and you're singing from the Imperium hymn sheet, you're probably fine. If you're not, you're a target, just like anybody else out there in the universe. Okay, right. We've got factional conflict. Now, that is quite a hotbed. So we have a kind of, potentially we have a growing dissent between our conservative majority and the more progressive factions, these feudal I call them the feudal tech bros, the feudal technocrats, the merchants, and this Tarot Corporation. And that could effectively, or could potentially erupt into some form of conflict. And the players, they might be involved on either side. They might be hired. They might find themselves caught in the middle. So there could be some conflict going there. And leading on from that, we could have a succession crisis. So say there was a power vacuum in this conservative government, that could trigger a conflict, a struggle for control, and lead to some political instability, some violence, and the players they might get hired, potentially to maybe even to protect someone, maybe a candidate, maybe there's there's a presidential election, and the players maybe feasibly get part of the security team to protect that person, and also just the maintenance of order, or if there is chaos and there's sort of everything's kicking off, maybe to exploit the chaos for their own gain. Okay, so that's all the political side. I thought that was almost like a hotbed, and particularly some of the juicy stuff with the Python division. I think that's fantastic. There's a lot of kind of potential scope for interest there. on the economic opportunities and dangers, that covers things like this crystal mining thing, and there might be conflict over that resource, and there might be potentially even like a crystal rush, where the demand for the Tarot's valuable crystals could spark a kind of, not like a gold rush, but something reasonably equivalent. And there could be conflict about control of the mining operations. So that could involve things in prospecting for new crystal deposits in some of the more unexplored areas. They might be quite dangerous. Maybe protecting some of the mining claims from any of the rival factions, and there might be some criminals trying to move in on this game. That'd be quite interesting. There might be involvement in either like negotiating some of the deals with some of the traders that are involved with this, and the buyers of these crystals. So any kind of off-worlders that come and want to deal with the crystals, that could be quite an avenue of opportunity. And then there's the if something that maybe not is being highlighted. Probably the Conservative majority. And even, I suppose, even the captive thing, if there are from an aesthetic point of view, just the environmental consequences of any intensive mining. So say a company wanted to ratchet up and really try to exploit these crystals. They might use some methods which would be classified as industrial, environmentally effectively laying waste to regions of this planet. And there might be some environmental opposition. So you could either players are either going to be the miners, prospectors, security guards, negotiators, activists. Don't bring your minds here type thing, and doing the placard stuff. And then I have got the polymer trade, so that's our rubber or our super rubber, and there could be some potential opportunities and in that field. We're going to have to potentially protect the supply chain. Maybe there's some of the maybe some of the spin-offs of this industry. There might be some ethical concerns, or sometimes maybe the actual the Conservative government aren't too happy with some of the applications that this super materials being put to. So maybe there's just some similar type involvement as the crystal mining side, just from another niche industry, and any unique factors around that, whether we're involved as miners or, well, not miners, it's effectively I think they're harvested, they're taken off the fibers are taken from the trees. So there might be some specific trees that are very high yield, and there might be a requirement to either protect those zones or try to locate them. So that that's where the characters could come in. And then maritime extraction. So all this lucrative, I call them whales, but they probably look quite like whales. And they can get not only their meat, but their oil is very high, a very effective lubricant in engineering, and there might be some conflict between fleets trying and extraction companies. There might even be pirates out there trying to basically, once we've say the extraction vessel has come across a herd of these whales, and they've done the harvesting of them, and they've got all this oil and they've got all this meat, and then the pirates come out and go, right, we're going to get you. The characters might be on board the ship with their assault rifles and whatever, defending the boat from these good old, almost like 18th century pirates doing their hard and lad. Okay, What else? We've got yeah, you're just your classic smuggling. I think I mentioned that on one of the first things. You know, the demand for off-world goods and banned technologies. There is a real scope here for contraband and trying to smuggle things through. I've got the feeling that probably the starport's got a lot of these angles covered. But if there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way. And I suppose that's come down. We've got some pretty smart characters now. Fiora's pretty good. She's really quite smart. Maybe she's she is supposed to be honest and truthful. It's whether her code would stretch to smuggling contraband. But they're used to high tech societies, and they probably don't quite understand the residents' kind of Luddism and almost like why they want you to turn the clock back. It doesn't make any sense. So smuggling operations, and so that would involve us in being smugglers, maybe even on the other side as enforcers and try to stop it. Okay, and then we've got the exploration side, so that's wilderness exploration and hunting, and it's it's pretty rugged terrain and kind of a unique ecosystem, and there might be opportunities to do things there. So we'd have all our kind of survival-based adventuring. There's like maybe mapping of unexplored regions, studying, research of the local flora and fauna. There might be some sort of research person wanting a mission on that. And then there might be where we're out in the wild, we suddenly get a cyclone and a severe storm, and we've got to try and survive that. And maybe the tantalizing prospect of this is maybe you could have this on any planet. Lost colonies or ruins. Maybe that would be more a rumor, but who knows? Who's to say that maybe this planet has been occupied in the past? And I have maybe a thread that in this setting of called the precursors. They're effectively like the Third Imperium ancients, and they inhabited this region of the galaxy, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they're gone. Maybe there is a precursor ruin somewhere, but this terrain is very irregular, and there's some deep gorges and these high mesas and plateaus. It's all over the place. So in all these nooks and crannies of Taro, who knows what that is nestling. And the beauty of this world is with this low population, it's never been fully explored, and most of it is virgin wilderness. So anything could be out there. And then there's maybe some deep sea exploration, and we've got some very deep oceans in Taro, so there could be undiscovered secrets and potential dangers down there. And who doesn't like getting in a submersible and going down into the sea? That could be quite good fun. And submersibles are allowed. The Conservative ruling party have said, yep, they're fine. We like them. Good World War II technology, so you're allowed that. Yeah. Well, I think I've jumped the gun. I've gone past the Spectre encounters. Yes, this Spectre threat. We have to address the elephant in the room. The Spectres. They're bound to cause us at some stage some kind of an issue. They are very dangerous. It's whether they pose a threat when we're out adventuring. There might be a job for us to kind of hunt them and exterminate any nests, any little family groups, or protect settlements from Spectre attacks. And then there could be like a more deeper and longer term type of project, and this could be like involve a thread where we have to just work out what their origins and the behavior of the Spectres, and why was this? Why did it happen? And almost like a kind of whodunit. Why were they let free, or was it just an accident? Who knows? And then just the overall threat, whether there's a way to control it, and obviously there's the spin-off that I've got with the Python division, and what will happen. Maybe something could escape from their facility. And my goodness, what could a modified, genetically enhanced spectre do out in the open? Turn into like some kind of Terminator. So you just don't really want to go there. So that's basically everything planet-wide. And then, of course, we've got the Dragon Hotel. And the way I'm going to pitch the Dragon Hotel, I think I've already mentioned it, it's going to be kind of John Wick light. It's not going to be full-blown on continental, but it's going to be something that's got a code, it's got a way of operating. It's going to have consistent levels of staffing. It's going to be kind of at the high end, maybe not luxury, but it's going to be high end. A very good, consistent service. It's all going to be about safety of the resident. However, there's what comes, if you have customer privileges, there is an expectation that the customer has to give something in return, which is adherence to this code, and they cannot break it. And if they do break it, they are in a world of pain, because there's probably either going to be a bounty or a contract placed on them, and they will be blacklisted, and they will be shunned from any Dragon Hotel, which would be a terrible thing. So behave yourself when you're on the premises. Okay. Well, I think the I'm not going to be able to. I can see from the time I'm not going to be able to get onto this starport today. But there is one last thing that I had on my list that I could do, which is when we were dealing with our NPCs last time, we had generated these aspects. We'd identify who they were, and what their personalities were like. And I think at the time I explained, don't read into these just the literal. Think out the box. They could represent something. So I've kind of gone away and kind of come up with just maybe just who these people are in the world of tarot, and how they can feed into our campaign. This I think this is quite a good mechanism, just so that we can establish a bit of kind of I don't want the word control, but it's almost like I can establish what I want in my game by using these characters as maybe some of the key movers and shakers that our characters are going to have to come up with. And maybe they might not meet all of them, but they will know of these people, and they might have interactions with them. So they might not, say, have direct contact with, say, the shopkeeper, but his or hers influence and actions might have an impact on them. However, they might have a direct relationship, say, with the scout administrator. We'll have to wait and see. But it'd be interesting to find out who these people are first. So I had to think about them. I came up with a little list, and I think that the shopkeeper, let's do one. He is, I made him a he. I've just decided I'm going to do almost like a 50-50 thing. I'm not going to bother doing the rolling thing. And he is a senator. He is a senator, and he's called Valerius Thorn. And Valerius, he's called the shopkeeper because he's from a long line of very rich, they owned department stores. And his little nickname, or their nicknames, are the shopkeepers, because he went into politics, and he was kind of given that kind of monocle by the public. As a kind of that's a bit of a laugh. And he is basically a fanatical conservative politician. So I've said he's dedicated. Well, basically he's fanatical. He's a conservative politician in the Tarot Republican Senate. And his thing is that he's basically an ideological extremist. He's pushing for a rigid, uncompromising version of the Tarotian tradition. So this pragmatic compromise, let's just really kind of tighten it up, and let's reject all this other technology. And he's quite extreme, and he is a rising star, and he's getting a growing following. He's very charismatic. He's very eloquent. He's basically almost like a populist, and he's generating, and he's using like the minority group as kind of like a scapegoat. Sometimes saying, "Look at those lazy robot users. They're absolutely useless. That's what technology has done to them. You know, it's terrible. You know, if we have any more technology, that's what it'll do to us. It'll rot us from the inside." And he's very good at that kind of thing. And he's very, very down on any dissent. So he says, "Look, these people are against us. They're not for us. We've got to stand up for our society." So he's that kind of guy. So that's our Senator Valerius Thorn. He sounds like a really, really nice bloke. And I thought I'd ramp dedicated up to full blast. He's almost like a fanatic. On the second one, well, excuse me. I had a bit of fun with the second one, because I thought, remember I said, oh, I haven't got a secret agent. Well, actually, I've decided to have a secret agent, and I've decided to call, this is Lady, and this is going to be Agent Lyra Val. Now, she is during the day, she is a scout administrator, and she works in the starport as quite a senior Imperium official, kind of boring administrator in the hierarchy, quite high up. But she is actually an undercover Imperial Secret Service agent posing as the scout administrator, and she's in deep cover. And she has an agenda which is to ensure the Imperium's interests are protected and also enhanced on this planet. So she's involved in all sorts of things behind the scenes, but she's a fantastic cover. She's got a fantastic cover, and she's very good at her job. She's very inquisitive and observant. So she's great at gathering intelligence and uncovering hidden information. She's very charming. She's very adaptable to situations, and she's fantastic at adopting different kind of personas and blending in to the thing. She loves being in the green. I was going to say the Green Dragon, the Dragon Hotel. That's where she goes, and she can adopt different personas there. And she's got a style that you would give her trust. She's very believable. And also, you know, she's got a nice streak to her. She's quite idealistic. She really believes in the Imperium, and she thinks that, you know, it is an institution to be proud of, and she's right up. She's a real kind of cheerleader for the Imperium, but she's got a pragmatic side that she is willing to make compromises, and that tends to be on the side of I'll make a compromise if it achieves the Imperium's aim. And she does realize the Imperium isn't all sweetness and light, but she is willing to turn the other cheek on that one, and, you know, just basically a blind eye, and just get on with the job. So I thought that was quite an interesting one. So that's Agent Lyra Val. And our final one is the Technician. Now, the Technician, he is called the Technician because he is Director Alistair Vance, and he is the Director of Research and Development for the Python Division. Whoa. It gets all scary now. And we don't know whether he is involved directly. He probably knows all about the Spectre stuff. He certainly knows about the cybernetics and the vac suits. He is your arrogant genius. He's supremely confident in his intellect, but he's got this pragmatic, amoral approach as well. So he's quite grounded too, even though he's very confident. He's got a visionary obsession. He's got this grand vision of technological advancement, and also pushing ethical boundaries. He doesn't believe in, there's no such thing as an ethical boundary. Don't come to me. You know, that's what he said to his staff. Don't come to me with ethical boundaries. They're there to be breached. There are no boundaries. Yeah. So he really is. He's almost like he's like a fanatic tech in comparison to like Senator Valerius's political fanaticism. And he's basically, he'll do anything to achieve his goals. You know, the end justifies the means. You know, he really is an absolute piece of work. So I think, you know, they are shaping up to be quite interesting and dynamic NPCs for us to potentially engage with. As I say, we might not be meeting them in the street or in the Dragon Hotel, but there's a good chance that we will come across their influence or their workings, and we might even, you know, who's to say we won't establish some form of relationship. He sounds like a potential enemy. I think a potential enemy to anyone on this planet. Agent Lyra Vals, she sounds like the heroine of the planet. And you know, if you're certainly on the Imperium camp, and I must admit, when I used to play Traveller, I was always a bit of a soft spot for the Imperium. You know, they weren't seen as the enemy. I was a bit of a kind of an Imperium bro type person. So you know, I can sympathise with her cause. And the you know, who are you going to follow the rantings of Senator Valerius Thorn, or are you going to oppose them and side with the rather fey and soft living captives, the free, the space hippies? Are you going to side with them? Okay, right. That's basically, that's what I expected I would get through this session. I think it was over ambitious to think I'd get into the spaceport, but you know, I think we've finished off everything to do with the planet. I've set up maybe some characters. I've given you kind of like my vision of what all the different threads are going to be, all the different adventure points. I think we're ready to blast into the starport next time and just see exactly what the Taurus starport's like, and then the Dragon Hotel as a consequence. And I'll set up and give you an explanation of what that hotel is all about, who staffs it, what its kind of ethos is, a bit about its history, what it looks like, all that kind of good stuff, and the type of people that would meet in it. And then we actually get back, recycle back to our characters, and I give you the setup for our characters and why they've got together, and we might actually start rolling some dice and sort of say, well, here's some of the options why they got together. Let's start maybe doing some choice of options to say, well, they got together for this reason and they got together for that, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, good. Right, well, thanks for joining me on that one, and I'll see you next time.